What's the worst punishment you ever received as a child? My mom found out my sister was suicidal, so she locked my sister in her room with literally nothing but a blanket and maybe an air mattress. She was only let out to use the restroom. Food and clothes were brought up to her and then taken when she was finished. My mom told me about this when I was about 8 or 9. I'm 19 now, and I have never and will never tell her about any of my mental health issues for fear of my life. Yes, leave a suicidal person alone with their thoughts for however long. My grandparents beating my mother in front of me for me talking to her. I was in their custody and my mother was an addict who they didn't want around, and she kept trying to call and come see me. So she came over and my grandparents beat her, broke her jaw and nose, and said it was my fault for talking to her. I was 7. My mother was an addict, no surprises there. Your grandparents sound like shut. Ironically, my grandmother was also an alcoholic and pillhead as well. And yeah, I have way more worse stories, lol. I was driven about 30 minutes outside of my city to an isolated, large, and creepy looking building, which I was told was an orphanage. I was given the choice of telling the truth and admitting to something I had not done, or being left there. I'm 38 and still think about this from time to time. Update, not to excuse what they did, but my mum and dad both had terrible upbringings with abusive parents. My dad was full of anger and my mum was rather weak and full of shame. I started therapy about 5 years ago and was reaching a point where I was going to decide whether to confront my parents with how I felt about my childhood or cut them from my life. Then my dad died. With his death, a lot of my own anger about how they'd behaved went. I've been able to be the bigger person with my mum and set her a better example of how to behave, including how I expect her to behave towards me. Our relationship is stronger than it has ever been, and I don't dwell on this event in the same way. I used to be hurt thinking about it. Now I see it as the reactions of angry and scared people to a situation they couldn't control, and resolve to do better myself. My dad always told my brother and I that he was going to have CPS take us away because he hated us. Gotta love those long-term crippling fears of abandonment. My mum does the same thing. She'll tell to my sick dad whilst I'm in the other room crying after an argument where she threatens to kill me that she can't deal with this shit anymore and it needs to go. It's really hurtful. Edit, it's worse because my dad really doesn't care. Has got terminal cancer, which is stressful for all of us, but mostly him, so he just says, well, do it then. Like after has gone, he doesn't care what happens to me. When I was around 6 years old, my stepdad woke me up in the night by pulling me out of the bed and yelling that I had got piss on the toilet seat. He took me out on the front porch, and while he was paddling me, the rail I was bracing against broke, and I fell off the porch. My mom used to do the whole waking me up in the middle of the night for some perceived wrongdoing stuff. She would suddenly and loudly throw my door open, turn on the light and drag me out of bed at all hours. I'm pretty sure I'm a light sleeper and regularly wake up startled because of that. I'm 40. I swore I would never do that shit to my kids. Edit, gosh, I don't want to do the cliche Reddit thing, but I honestly didn't expect any attention whatsoever for this comment. Thank you to each person who's responded to this. You all got an upvote from me. It makes me sad to know others have experienced this, or much worse. For those who asked, I'm fine aside from the sleep stuff and some pretty intense anxiety that's gotten better with age. I actually have a very good relationship with my mom. We've talked about it over the years and I understand that like many others her age, she is a product of their upbringing. My kids are 20, 14, 13 and 13, and to this day, I have never done that. I am, however, probably a terrible parent in 100 other ways. Kidding. Virtual hugs to you all. I'm 40 and habitually wear shoes at all times, right until I get in bed, because my mom once trapped young, barefoot me in the kitchen with broken butt, so she could beat me at her leisure. Holy shit. You good now? I'm better. Thanks for asking. I have quirks and a lot of anger, but I'm trying not to take it out on those around me. My mom said I couldn't have a best friend anymore because my best friend and I were drawing pentagrams on manuscript paint at our after school program. pretending they were transmutation circles from an anime called Full Metal Alchemist. Pentagrams are much easier for a 9-year-old to draw than an intricate alchemy array. My mom immediately jumped to this being devil worshipping, despite my friend and I not even knowing what a pentagram really meant. This led to my mom telling every single teacher and after school care worker not to allow me to be anywhere near my friend. Friend moves away and mom won't let me email her to stay in touch. I'm 24 now and haven't had any close friends since. Christina, if you're out there, I still miss you. This made me so sad. I hope you find her one day. My dad holding me up by grabbing my ear and my foot. Lol, my mom broke the cartilage in my ear like this. It turned blackish and hurt when the wind blew. Thought I had an ear infection. She took me to the doctor. Guy says this shut broke. What happened? I hadn't realized what happened until the doctor asked me, and I thought for a few seconds and saw my mother staring at me, and I fell. I always thought I just saved this bitch a really awkward situation. Lol. Not gonna lie, this shut broke made me laugh. My mum took everything in my room except a blanket, my radio, books, toys, you name it. I was locked in there for the UK summer holidays. They are 6 weeks long. My mum used to beat 10 bells of shut out of, but being locked in that room the whole summer was probably the worst. I was grounded for 6 months straight, which was me being locked in my room, not an actual physical lock, and I wasn't allowed to leave it except for dinner, the bathroom and to go to school. I had 0 toys. I owned no books. I had nothing to do but get lost in my head, and at one point my radio was taken away, so I was left in complete silence. I was between 10 to 13. Why was I grounded? My dad thought either my brother or I stole his camera and sold it, and until we told him who did it, we were both grounded. Finally, after 6 months, he finally cleaned his room and found his camera and said we were ungrounded. We never even got an apology. After that, my dad continued to ground me for block of months at a time. I ended up being grounded and isolated for 5 years total between 10 to 13 years old. Being trapped in my head for that long has ducked me up mentally permanently. I'm done reading this thread. Too depressing. Same. This shut is rough. I ducking hate shutty parents now. Like top 10 most hated things. Beatings will continue until your moral improvers in all ducking serious. Life got better, and I never see my dad anymore and him and my mom ask when I'm having kids and why I haven't seen them in years despite living probably 30 minutes from them. I wish more people realize they can cut toxic people they are related to out of their lives. You can't pick your family, but you can choose to leave. In the 1980s, my father was a radioman and often had spare parts lying around. Whenever I was rebellious toward him, he was fond of whipping my bare back with metal radio antenna. I hope you are in a better place now and are okay after that. I've been hit on the legs with one of those. Ducking hurts. When I was 8 years old, I had every dish in the house thrown at me, including a loaf of bread. I was then locked outside till midnight. I was first put out in the morning. Once I was left out front. 4-year-old me thought, imago over there. They couldn't find me because I was going to the park, down the road, on my own, in the cold. I can't even imagine letting either of my kids, 3 and 5, out of the house on their own. The pointless ones. We had landscaping rocks in our yard from an unfinished project. They were probably 30 pounds each. After a number of other punishments failed, my parents came up with the move rocks punishment. I'd have to move 30 or so of these rocks 50 yards. Set them up into a particular shape, square, circle, etc. Closed bracket, comma. Have my parents check them, and then move them all back. The pointlessness of it all was the worst. Sounds like an anal punishment. They had top bamboo feather duster to the butt. It's basically caning. Yes, but with a whimsical feathered aspect you don't see in a good caning. My mom pulled down my pants and hit me with the brush side of a hairbrush. In front of my 3 fellow 5-year-old friends. I was innocent. She didn't believe me. That's rough, buddy. My friend's mom was the smartest woman on earth though. Growing up she would reward us with a pack of Pokemon cards for completing a list of chores. But if we were being really misbehaved she would pull out a pack, open it, show us the contents of the pack, and then rip up the cards. The woman ripped up a ducking Charizard in front of two 10-year-olds and an 8-year-old. We didn't act out much after that devastating blow. I'm not sure if I'm horrified or impressed. I'm both. And butt whooping from dad. That his grip and my trying to run broke my arm. How was that explained to the doctor? I fell off of my bike. So that's why the nurses separated my whole family to ask each of us exactly how my sibling broke an arm as a toddler. They really did just fall off a chair though. Same thing happened to me. I busted my head open by running and hitting a wall. The doctors thought my parents were lying. Lol. Nope, I'm just a dumbert. Got put on restriction for 6 months for doing something my mom said I could do. But then she said she never gave me permission to do, even though another adult was sitting there and confirmed he heard her give me permission to do it. Also had to pick up all the rocks in the vacant lot next to our house and put them in a pile on weekends as part of the punishment. That something was, rode my bicycle to the library. That's it? Bruh. Exercise and education, 6 months of abuse. I shat my pants in the 4th grade. I don't know why, but I had a condition that made me hold it all in and not use a toilet. This had been going on and off my entire life, not a problem anymore. My dad was furious. I remember being naked in my bedroom with my dad. My dirty underwear was on the floor and my dad had a hard grip on my arm while he screamed and yelled at me. He yelled at me things like, how old are you, no one is gonna wanna be your friend and you're disgusting. He then beat me his belt. My dad worked at a flour mill and spent his days stacking 100-pound flour bags 10 high, so he was built like the ducking Hulk. He would then rub my shut-filled underwear in my face, making me look at it and smell it. Pediatric fecal retention syndrome. My daughter has this. It isn't your fault. Edit. For small children/infants over 12 months. Daily use of Restoralax or fiber-based laxative. Older children can use this as well, but are more likely to learn not to use the wrong muscles when defecating. The Restoralax stops the pain/fear cycle as the child learns it won't hurt anymore to go. Basically the infant begins solid foods. The poo becomes more solid and some constipation is normal at this stage, which is why there is baby pureed prunes to help. However, some babies will posture, looks like masturbating, and may eventually become a masturbation method. Their legs in a rhythmic pattern as they are using the incorrect muscle in the rectum, and are instead holding the poo, usually to try to prevent the poo from coming out and hurting. Or sometimes, just because they figure out the pooing sensation to push incorrectly. This poo then gets bigger and harder, because it dries out, causing mega stools and the body finally forces it out, and they can experience severe pain from this, making the cycle next time worse as they try to prevent it. Diarrhea is also a symptom of constipation. There is functional constipation as well, which is different, but may be related. Now that my daughter is older, 4, she is still on a cap full of Restoralax a day. Pediatrician told to do so. It can't harm her. However, potty training is delayed as she is afraid of anything to do with defecation. What also happens is the parent or doctor or teacher becomes frustrated and may start harsh discipline and punishment for the child not defecating properly, making it an anxiety-related thing. Hands tied behind my back with a belt so I couldn't cover myself, and then beat about the face, neck and shoulders with another belt for several minutes. Dad was a real piece of shit. Edit. Thanks for the kind words. Life got better. Damn, that sucks. My mom would just sit on me to hold me down so dad could get good shots with the belt. Damn. I'm lucky. I was only ever spanked with a wooden spoon, and once I could outrun my mom, she let me. I can't believe people think beating the shit out of kids is good parenting. My daughter has ADHD. She's sweet and honest. Sometimes she has trouble paying attention, or sitting still or following instructions. She's 5. My dad will be complaining about her being too squirrely, and I'll say something like, yeah, I really need to take her out and let her run around a little. And he over and over and over again says, or you just need a paddle. He keeps offering to make me one, and I say no. He says, I had a paddle for you, and you turned out alright. Honestly, I remember the paddle. I remember the spankings. They sucked and they didn't deter me, because I also have ADHD and had impulse control problems. I just learned to lie about everything to stay out of trouble. I'm glad my daughter is honest, and she always tries to do the right thing. And when she makes a mistake, or is having trouble containing herself, I know exactly how she feels, and try to help her find a better way to work through it. Sometimes she has to face consequences, sure, but a paddle is not going to do anything but teach her to lie. Not me, but my son actually. He is a little fella, as are his mother and myself. She would force him to drink nothing but Pediasure with every meal, and go ballistic when he would not be able to finish the terrible frozen meal she made him. She sent a message to me saying he was hiding food he didn't want to eat, and that she beat his butt and I should expect bruising. The next day my father picks him up and dropped him off to my girlfriend at our house. After dinner she went to put him in the shower and was horrified at what she saw. Imagine a tiny 7-year-old boy with a completely bruised butt. And I mean deep purple, yellow and green bruises. She called me immediately. I rushed home from work, calling the police on my way. A sergeant from my local PD was very helpful and supportive to my little boy. Told me what to file and how to file it, and that I should rush to Children's Hospital. He also called his lifelong best friend who is a captain in the town where my ex-wife lives. Within 2 weeks I had full emergency custody and she had domestic violence charges. Fast forward a year, and I'm a sole custodial parent and my son is thriving. He has gained almost 20 lbs. Can now ride a bike without training wheels. He could not ride one at all when we took custody. Good food, positive attention, and lots of love have helped him grow tremendously. Well done. Your son is lucky to have you. I was the youngest of 3 girls in my family. My worst punishment came after my dad left. As a baby, my dad would beat my sisters for any little thing they did wrong, but because I was born on his birthday, he saw me as special. My father was a drug addict who brought fear into the home and only I wasn't touched by his fists and feet. My sisters and mom were all victims, and while they tended their wounds I was smothered and loved. They hated me for it. Dad left and now no one was protecting me. What was my worst punishment? I was locked up. My mom would lock me in my room for hours and my sisters had free reign on me with their punishments. Every time I stepped out of line, I was reminded how much hate there was. I was beat by my sisters and neglected by my mother. My worst punishment was when I said to my mom that I hated her and the family and I wished they were all dead. She grabbed me by the hair, dragged me into the laundry, and locked me in there. The floor was stone, and it was winter. I remember being so cold it hurt. I guess I was asleep when I was eventually let out. I hated my punishments. The locking up stopped when I was around 12. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you want more videos don't forget to like and subscribe. You are helping me a lot. Thanks again.